So
why not do an audit?
I appreciate it's an overall.
that's public information as well. The Finance Committee did request the right to investigate and entertain bids from forensic accountants, and we are in the process of doing that.
So you're gonna cost us a lot more money like you did the IRS?
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, either I'm telling you that this money is missing, or you want me to look into it.
You're dishonest, that's what bothers me.
No, I'm not sure that's what he's doing at all. I think that's the let me finish now. I think that's the gross oversimplification of this process, and I think everybody gets their own orientation. If your particular orientation is things for 20 years in Serrano were just peaches and cream and all is great, that's your opinion. But I think quite a few of your fellow owners don't agree with you, and I think the analogy of you've got people peeking behind the curtain now to go 1 and 1 equals 3. And that doesn't make any sense to me. So if it takes us time to figure that out, and in the interest of trying to be open and upfront, we come and we have this conversation, we show you these numbers, to lob out there, it's going to cost us more money, I'm not sure that's a little disingenuous. I think folks want to know.
I'm in favor of transparency.
Great.
And you say you are, so why wasn't all this security thing transparent?
Well, let me give you a great example. If you have let's have a hypothetical situation about it. If you have internal employees that you are publicly debating whether or not they're going to keep their jobs, right? And one of them then, while this debate's going on, slips and falls. You own that. He's your employee, you own that cost. If documents go missing, all of a sudden patrol orders or restraining order lists at the gatehouses turn up missing, or contractor passes turn up missing, or your gatehouse, universal gatehouse remotes, the ones that open every gate in the Serrano, if they turn up missing. These are the things you don't want to happen, right? This is what happens. This is what you don't want to happen. Every one of those things happen in 1 week.
Can you say
every one of those things happen?
Can you do that again, please? Just say that again. What happened?
The restraining order list at the gatehouse, the list of people we don't allow in the community because they have restraining orders, when Paladin came over, was gone. It disappeared. The list of approved contractors, the ones so you don't have a big pile of cars trying to get in every day, disappeared. The universal remotes that open every gate in this community, that were on the keys for the patrol vehicles, disappeared. The furniture in the gatehouses, disappeared. Paladin comes down to the management office, we need these documents. We need the process that you've got. Where's the process for issuing contractor? It's all gone.
That was in 1 week.
In 1 week. So extrapolate what could happen over a month.
So it's good now we got
Maybe that's because they got screwed.
There were 24 employees that were invited to come speak to Paladin about continuing with their job. 12 of them walked out. Didn't even hear the pitch. I think we ultimately kept 6 of them, 7 of them, and most of the ones that I've spoken to have all said Paladin is a squared away, good choice, we're happy.
One of them hopes to be, one of the officers actually lives in Serrano and stopped me and asked me when the next board meeting is because he wants to come and tell me what his experiences have been. But let's not have this, let's not labor under this delusion that somehow we can have this, let's send an RFP out and publicly debate the future of 22 employees in front of them, and while we own all of the liability associated with the cost of their employment.
Well, I totally disagree. I think you could have sat down with them well in advance and said, you know what, we are considering going to third-party services. We want you to know up front, because we're straightforward folks, and we're considering it. We haven't made a decision. We're going to get some quotes. We're going to compare them. This might happen. It might not happen. But if you got the bad reaction that you got, and I hadn't heard that before tonight, if you got that, very likely it's because they feel like they got Shanghai.
So every one of these people that got Shanghai,
Well, you're going to have to go, I don't know anything about why this happened.
but let me answer what you said. So the people that got Shanghai were offered employment at a higher wage.
But 4 days notice.
Well, it wasn't 4 days notice. That's not it. It was 7, 8, 9, 10 days notice. The opportunity for them to come to work at a higher wage, to receive enhanced training at the expense of the vendor, coupled with the fact that they all had the opportunity, every one of them was guaranteed placement. So nobody had to lose their job anyway.
That's not cool that they got rid of the restraining order list. That's hurting homeowners.
It's an imperfect world, that's what we're dealing with sometimes.
I'm just saying.
So, and every employee that is separated received some compensation for their severance under the agreement that they would continue to work productively for the owners in the community until their last day, whether they chose to stay or left.
And I just
They were
want-
compensated for that.
I just want to remind you that you can see this board is divided. We're not all here, we're not having a meeting tonight, we're just telling you, we're the ones that are perceivably believed to be the ones that have created this problem, but it was a unanimous decision. We were trying to protect the owners association first. We're giving you examples of things that still happen even though we did all of these things, including we signed a 30-day out contract so that the owners association and whoever wants to be on the traffic and safety committee could have input on what do the services look like in the long run. We didn't lock you into anything, but we wanted to get you out of what we were in at the time.
Just one thing. I was one of those that was laid off. I thought it was handled very poorly in the sense that we got called into a meeting, we got laid off, and then all of a sudden, the new security comes in to talk to us. Of course, I stayed for the meeting because I wanted to hear what they had to say, but people were so upset. They could have waited at least one day or two and then called that meeting with the new security. But to come barging in and having that, meeting to tell us, we'll offer you a job, people were really upset, and that's why they left.
But they didn't just
So that's a
leave.
staff issue.
They didn't just leave, they also would stop cars at the gates on the way into the community, and they would tell the people coming into the community these stories about, we're not militant enough, where they're hiring more militant people to come and police you. A couple of people called me and said, my wife got stopped as she was driving into the community, and the gate alarm wasn't raised, and the officer walked out to tell her this tale. A sheriff's deputy told me that he got flagged down by one of our patrol officers. This is during the week. This is during the 1 week. And the sheriff's officer was told all kinds of things. They're getting rid of all the management. They're firing everybody. They're going external. This happened to your... It did? Did it happen to your wife?
Yeah,
Emily?
yeah. It did, it was stopped.
So I just mean, if you didn't see it, that's great. I'm glad it didn't happen to you, but it sure did to other people. That's with 1 week. That's with 1 week. Extrapolate that over a month. And what you said earlier to me is equally disturbing, that you would have this conversation with them, hey, we're thinking about getting rid of your job, and then what if at the end of the discussion you decide not to? You've created all the anxiety and all the angst among these people for nothing.
Well, I happen to believe that if you're straightforward with people and you give them plenty of notice, then they have an opportunity to do whatever it is they feel they need to do for their future. And to lay it on with minimal notice is immoral in my opinion. And it works.
I appreciate your interest.
I want to say something. In business, when you let someone go, you bring them in, you tell them they're going to go, you tell them to pack their things, and you let them go. That's the, and you walk them out if you were in a, absolutely. So the idea of having and putting all these words out there is just wrong. It just is wrong. That's the way business is done. If you have employees that have to go, pack it up, and they're gone. And I just want to say, I've only been coming since July, so I have no vested background at all. But I am so glad that these two guys are here. My meeting, the first one, Kurt Bone said, I'm happy to meet with anybody. I raised my hand, I was the only one. I said I would meet with him on another issue, which is not important right now. I never heard from him. I followed it up with an email. I was told by his secretary that he was on vacation. He would get back to me when he returned. I have yet to hear from him. So the idea that these two guys are taking flack, I'm the one that asked Katie to stay and make a vote. You know what she did? She looked straight in my eye and walked right out the door. All she had to do was say yes or no on a vote. She chose to walk out. So to sit here before we lose anybody else, I just want to say, You're upset about the security, okay, but this is where we are. We don't have the liability of the security anymore.
Sure we do.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about that. What do you think we have liability? And I'll tell you how we don't.
Okay, are you saying that they're insured? Is that why we don't have liability?
You tell me, and then I'll tell you.
I'll tell you, in police work and security work, security only has a certain authority. And that really is prevention, and it's to observe and report, period. We're talking about arming these guys and being first responders. You tell me, if we endorse that, there's no liability?
I didn't say there's no liability. So let's go with the hot tub incident. How does that play out? Let's say that there's a claim for $1 million. Who pays that? How's it going to work?
Well, they're going to do a lawsuit, and they name everybody.
Okay, tell me how that works.
Everybody's going to get sued. It's going to be settled somehow.
Okay.
But to absolve ourselves from liability when we contract out with them, I don't think that's true.
Okay,
I don't think that's true at
So
all.
the way it works is Paladin carries $3 million of insurance. The first $3 million is on them as well. If we're sued and named in it, they have to defend and hold us harmless and provide, at our discretion, an attorney of our choice. So they're paying our legal fees and they're paying the first $3 million. If their insurance is exhausted, then we exhaust them as a company. When that is exhausted, we have a $10 million liability umbrella. It doesn't get any better than that.
Okay, we're protected, but we still are liable. We still can be liable.
So
The only way we wouldn't be is to shut down security and have no security at all.
Well, I'm just going to say this because I don't go to all meetings, but I'm telling you, I know the training, and if you look up the training for what these officers do, it's not like some big figure. Even for arming them, it's 8 hours of lecture and 6 hours at the range.
What were they doing before?
Sir, I think it's important because you are in the business, you understand. So you know the PC 832.
I teach PC 830.
So, and that's what every officer that works up here has as a minimum. Aside from their,
Yeah.
so let me say, the law says they only need 40 hours of training. Before we get an officer up here, they've got the PC 832, a full 2-week PC 832, and 240 hours internally. And the Paladin has their own security training school. They teach other companies' officers for the BSIS level 1, level 2.
Okay, let me throw out something. Do you guys like your security dressed up like in fatigues? Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah.
I live here. I like living here. I don't want people visiting me going, oh my gosh, you got some kind of problem here? I was in security for 3 years after I retired from the Highway Patrol. We asked our clients, how do you want us to dress? That was the first thing, because we were representing them. I don't like them in fatigues, and I don't like their little demeanor and attitude that they've had when I try to wave at them. I see their look, and you know something?
Sir, I'm not sure that their demeanor is subjective to it. Let's answer the uniform question.
Okay.
Paladin is a company that operates in the city of Sacramento. The city of Sacramento is one of 3 jurisdictions in Northern California that chooses by law to regulate what color uniforms the officers can wear.
Mm-hmm.
They don't wear fatigues. That's not what they're wearing. They're wearing the regular Class A uniform. They're wearing what you wore on the Highway Patrol, but it's in green. So if you look at it, it's exactly the same uniform. The fly shirt, flying cross, pants, and shirt. In the city of Sacramento, I understand that, but their business is. So when they outfit and equip their officers, they have to follow the law. In the city of Sacramento, they can't wear blue, black, or tan.
Correct.
So if you eliminate blue, black, or tan as a combination, you don't have a whole lot of different color choices left. Now, El Dorado County does not regulate that. So if part of our process going forward is folks want to change the color of the uniform, go ahead, no problem. That's not written in stone. They've said they're more than happy. Listen, you want to pay for the uniforms? We're more than happy to change the color. But we're a company that operates in the metropolitan area. We've got to be in compliance with the law. The law says no blue, black, or tan. So look at your color palette, there's not a whole lot left. But the other point I want to say about liability is not too, well, it was probably pre-2008. One of our Serrano officers got into a beef with a guy with a leaf blower. He was blowing the leaf blower after hours, and they got in a fight. The officer and the owner got in a fight. Guess who got arrested? The officer got arrested. Now, prior to post-2008, when these are your employees, whose liability is that? Yours. 100%. No umbrella policy, no additional insured.
Well, I'm saying we're protected, but it doesn't absolve us from being, civil or liable.
Of course.
That's my only point.
But
It's not like King's X.
No, but it's not direct liability.
But I'm just saying, it's a very important point, just like these post orders that you talk about. I hope you have somebody legitimate look at those about detentions, consensual encounters, Fourth Amendment rights, all those kind of things. That should be laid out, because when people in security, when they're out there, if they grow a little bit, who they're going to hassle is the young kids. And they're going to exert certain authority over them that they don't have.
You're absolutely right. And so what we did is we asked Paladin, the board, maybe naively, I'm sorry, I don't need to be looking around. We asked Paladin, we said, we want you to follow our post orders. Here they are. We want you doing what our people did. And Paladin came back to us. We had a board meeting and said, we can't do that. What do you mean you can't do that? So your post orders violate the law. We're not going to do that.
Right.
Your post orders talk about how to detain people. It's illegal.
That's right.
What you, Serrano, are telling your officers to do violates the law, and we're clearly not going to do that. So that's the eye-popping stuff that you look at.
Yeah, but
Right?
hopefully that incident's not true.
Which one?
The one where they went in the backyard.
Yeah, can you get to the bottom of that tonight in the next meeting?
I'm waiting. I'm very disappointed that management, management can be very selective about what they choose to send.
Can that be on to the next meeting? What happened?
I'm going to make my decision.
Perception's an interesting. I saw the guard driving around in his truck with his window open, and he waved and said hello to me when I was walking the dog.
Me too.
So that's just as friendly as any of the other guys used to be. Agreed.
So I'll hustle this up. Let me finish this up. The analysis that management did compared not what we've done for the last year and up until we cut off our in-house operation. They did an analysis based on what we might do in 2016. And so this column here actually is the hours per year that are being worked against the purported total cost, that there are some concerns about. But what you see is these top numbers are for part-time employees at 50% FTE or half-time, 1,040, and for 17 full-time employees at 52 weeks a year, 40 hours a week, is how they arrived at a maximum number of 40,560.
Dan, can you quiet that child,
Yeah, that was really stupid.
Mine's gonna blow up in the couch. So with the outsourced vendor, we pay just for direct service. So no holiday pay. Even though rain, sleet, or snow, we've got to have Serrano security here. No holiday pay to Paladin outsourced or anybody outsourced contractor. No PTO. The Serrano Security Department was roughly 3,500 hours a year.
Was any of the PTO included in their cost analysis?
We don't believe so, but again, we have not been able to get to the very bottom of their cost analysis. We hope we can do a little further tonight. There have been a number of questions that remain unanswered, but I can identify that I do believe the PTO was not accounted for correctly, and that it was direct service is what it was purported to be, at least partially to those of us that received the 2016 budget.
Sorry, are you saying you're paying your vendor and that we don't because they're paying them?
That's correct.
But let's be honest though, if you're running a business, all of that is passed through in what they are charging.
The point I'm trying to make is they're comparing us to all the hours they pay. 39,000 hours, many of which are PTO or on something other than direct
Well, I know, but
service
I'm
for
just
you.
saying, let's talk.
And they're saying this Paladin security company is doing less hours for you, but every hour they're doing, they're working for you. As opposed to comparing us to the total number of hours.
Well, I think like that, yeah, I think you have to look at what is the total contract price and what was the salary and all of that.
That's where we're saying that the number management's presenting to you are not doing that.
Well, I think that's where they're, it's raised right now.
Right.
I think that's where they're, to say that we aren't aren't paying for that is not correct. It's just passed through in the contract.
But if you're dividing by, let's say you're dividing by 3 times the numbers that are actually outworked, you're going to get a lower hourly rate than if you divide by the work that's being done for you.
What really matters is at the end of the year, you spend X number of dollars doing it this way versus X Y number of dollars doing it this way.
We agree.
Either about the same thing or you didn't.
You're right. We agree with that. So this whole management analysis was something to confuse basically that argument you're making right now. This in-house had significant disabilities. On every security report, there were things like a part-time officer on medical leave for non-work-related injury, or part-time officer on medical leave, scheduled to return to work on 3/20/2015.
Were they being paid?
Well, we don't know, and we don't know how many.
You would think so.
You would think so, but there's a lot of effort in figuring out, well, it was initially classified this way, or it happened that way, or it's workers' comp, or it's not. We're working on that, but what I can tell you is, again, none of this affects us under an outsourced contract. And the SOA security costs were going up, so since 2010, we're up 20% in what was being charged to the security line item. One of the issues that the board has faced in the finance committee, and if there are any finance committee members here tonight, the numbers aren't actually the numbers. There's stuff stuck in there that maybe shouldn't be in there, and there's stuff that should be in there that isn't in there, which makes it really even more difficult for us to say, this is the exact savings that we expect to get. An example of that is that we were originally told that the security manager was included in the line items for security. We were subsequently told that the security manager's nearly $100,000 base salary wasn't included in security, he was an admin. We don't know, and truthfully, I never signed up for a full-time job for free for the Strong Owners Association, but it's becoming that, where I can't just read the packet and evaluate the materials, I have to go and investigate all week long to get ready for the next one.
But it sounds like though then the people that we're employing are not competent from the perspective of doing accounting work. I mean, this is relatively basic accounting. Accounting is easy for some and not others, but if I were to say payroll is payroll and classify it, I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be that complicated.
When we sat down initially, and there's been a lot of talk.
And I'm not saying that you guys are doing anything wrong.
Well, let me just close on this, and I want to show you one other thing really quickly, in the interest of educating those of you that have been kind enough to come out and listen to us. This is how management communicated their backup information. So we were provided the analysis you got, no backup information, with a whole bunch of fuss sometime after, and I don't remember the sequence of events, but this says, this is being communicated to those of us that were complaining. Here's the backup as best we can at 5:30 on Friday. It isn't perfect.
Last Friday. This is not before it went out. This is
after, and this is much after the questions have been asked. It isn't perfect, and not every number ties out, but it's what we could do to put together based on the requests we've heard. I'm sure this information will raise as many questions as it answers.
Can you go back to that slide?
You bet.
There it is. I'm Neil McClens. I'm a homeowner in K3, K4, and I got this report, you know, it came out with the budget. It was I clicked a few times. But there's just a couple, you know, I don't know if anybody else has an Irish grandmother. I used to have an Irish grandmother, and she, if you do, you probably heard this before, but figures lie, and liars figure. And I don't mean to insult the people that put this together, but this is smoke and mirrors. And just look at the hours there. And obviously, there's no confidence now at all if they just use a mythical actual cost number. But if you look at the average hourly cost there for in-house and the average hourly cost there for Paladin, you actually do the math and multiply what they say are total hours, which I can't find I can't make those numbers, I can't back into those numbers from any of the stuff that was sent out.
They're inconsistent.
No, to say the least. The difference between this times this and this times this is almost $300,000. It's almost $300,000. You saw the 1.2 million plus. Well, this times this is 911.7 and change. That's $299,000 difference. And somehow, when they were all done, then doing whatever it was they did, it came down to $86,000. So if you don't know anything about accounting, which, I think lots of us are in that boat, that times that, minus that times that should be the money saved, I think. Then you can throw a bunch of other things in if you want to, like patrol or manager. They still have, they have no hours for Paladin for a manager. The contract provides for 2008.
So it's a different animal, right? This was my issue I had when I replied back to management. The manager position you see was Mark Moore. That was our in-house manager, right? Who didn't work the street, he didn't do patrol, he just was here in the office. They carried that over at zero, saying, and that makes it look like we are getting 2,080 less service hours a year by doing this. At best, what I said to management was, that is a subjective interpretation. At best, that's subjective. And that's for the board to decide if they agree with that. But obviously, I didn't get an answer, it went out. But so let's assume for a moment. So let me say from a contract perspective, I reject that premise out of hand, that we are getting 2,080 less hours because the responsibilities of our security manager are diffused among the management responsibilities that the vendor has to provide their service to all of their communities, right? When you do it yourself, you've got to pay somebody to do it. When you hire somebody, that's absorbed in their full contract price, right? That's how they do it. So even if you allow in a light most favorable to this analysis, which you shouldn't, but if you do, the 2,080 hours was for Mark Moore. Mark Moore's position, remember I told you some of our folks were backfilled by Monument. Mark Moore's position was never backfilled. So 2,080 hours would mean that your security manager worked every hour of every day of every work week for an entire year and never took a day off. That's the only way you get to 28.
40 times 52.
That's the only way you get to 28. So even if you were trying to be honest with that, you would have to back out the amount of time he takes off, and you're going to end up with a number less than 28. Because they can only cash out 40 hours of leave. The rest of it becomes use or lose.
So what happened when he was off for his
No one is here.
4 week? No, but somebody had to be,
They have an assistant.
Well, they have an assistant, that's the assistant manager, admin assistant position that you have. But what I'm suggesting to you is that this portion of the analysis is what I have the greatest trouble with, because the board didn't approve it. The board didn't even get a chance to vet it, to see it, anything. And I immediately asked the question, how are you getting 20-80 hours? You're assuming that your manager works and never takes a day off. That's not right. But that's how you get the number. You whittle down. Dean's taken a lot of flack because he said, well, my rough estimate $300,000. And you get folks on the internet, oh, see, it was all crock, it's bogus. When you listen to what Neil says, when you listen to what the accounting part, it is $300,000. But this is how you artificially chip away at that and try to make it something less. And that's where I rejected this part of it on principle. This was not management's decision to make. This was not their authority to include. The board should have, because if three of the 5 directors said we're good with this, I'd own it. Even if I didn't vote for it, I'd own it because I'm on the board. And I have to support what the board says. Not only did the board not get a chance to see it, we asked questions about it and didn't get answers. And then boom, the next thing you know, it's out to 3,000 people. And now everyone's mad and you're back on the internet again. I can't believe these scoundrels. And somehow it's always the Getz and Thompson show. And I'll say it again for the purposes, apparently since we're recording this was a unanimous decision. And I would ask you folks, other than consent calendar, when has this board ever been unanimous on anything? And it was 5-0 to do this. So all I'm asking is, you may disagree with how it was done, you may have issues with how it was accounted, but this wasn't some 3-2, no one can pound their shoe on the table and say, I was the lone voice of reason against this insanity. This was 5-0. And this idea that you can smear Dean or you can smear me, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to push back on that. That's not accurate, that's not fair, and that's not holding everybody accountable. You're not happy with the way it was done, that's great. The board never got a chance to approve this, they never got a chance to say it was okay, and you had a general manager that sent it out on his own. So
Let me just add a couple things. We're looking at every aspect of how the owners association works with a fresh set of eyes. So for example, the phone number that you dial for security, we find out that that rings at the main gatehouse. East gatehouse, that's what I meant to say. The East gatehouse. If the East gatehouse guy is out writing down somebody's license plate, it's going to ring anyway. Paladin brings a 24-hour-a-day call center operation. We just forward the number. The old number is the same number that goes to their operation. It's better service. There's no accounting for that, and frankly, there probably shouldn't be any accounting for that. But the list goes on from there to every little, like, we glazed over. They've got microchipping for pets, to find pets. They're willing to wrangle rattlesnakes and so on and so forth. We really believed that we were doing right in reducing the liability, in reducing the cost, in doing our best to offer our existing employees a job without creating additional liability to the owners, not entering into a long-term contract so that we could have a discussion about what do we really want and not being committed to Paladin. And we really did believe, and we were advised, and I'll tell you, we were strongly advised not to do it in open session with everybody and stress everybody out as to whether we can get there, we can't get there with the votes. That was not appropriate. It wasn't even on the table. This analysis supports the idea that we don't have a unified front, and that's what we want to identify. We're not afraid of the truth, and we're willing to share it. And I have one more short few slides I want to show you guys before you leave for those of the state.
Just a couple more things, and I'll be